and then we accumulated studies on many different areas, developing two extracts, clamine and Afamax, the two extracts that are actually part of the Climax product. By the way, I just wanted to say that it seems like finally they released the product from the FDA, and so it should be available pretty soon.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's always these problems with the governments around the world for registration and importing, and which always delays things. But so anyway, we started identifying molecules that were beneficial for different areas, and essentially the two extracts were born initially not even focusing on stem cells. The two extracts are, as I said, clamine and Afamax. And clamine is an extract that concentrates PEA, the phenylethylamine, which is called also the molecule of love, because it's a molecule that actually we developed endogenously ourselves on our own when we're in love, when we're happy, when we're enthusiastic about something. And of course, when we are in the opposite spectrum of those feelings, when we're depressed, when we're unhappy, when we're without energy, we usually lack this wonderful molecule in our metabolism, in our body. And clamine really is like bringing back and restoring this fundamental metabolism. And we're discovering more and more that PEA has so many incredible properties, because it's not only a general neuromodulator, which means it stimulates all the neurotransmitters, so it has an effect on depression. Actually, what we found in our study is that it has exactly the same great effect on both anxiety and depression. Usually you need to take like separate products or separate drugs for one condition or the other. With clamine, you actually have the same effect on both, on anxiety and depression and stress, precisely because it modulates, it restores the balance in the functioning of the brain and the nervous system. But the cascade of the neurotransmission actually has so many great effects on all the body, because then through the increase, for instance, in dopamine, you get an increase in energy in your noradrenaline from your surrenal, because it stimulates the surrenals to produce noradrenaline. And then through that, it for instance, has an important effect on hunger, on nervous hunger, as I mentioned before. And interestingly enough, we also see it regularly in our experience. Very interesting effect also on libido and sexual desire, for instance. But now we've discovered that PEA has also very important activity on the immune system. It's actually the molecule that is essential for the activation of all the immune molecules. And that is why, generally who takes this product tends to be very strong against, winter illnesses and immunological problems generally. What in the process of discovering all these things, because one thing I wanted to say, some of you asked me for studies and that I actually finished pretty much preparing a summary of all the studies. It's about a 10 pages booklet with all the studies that we've done and a synthesis of what each study means and what were the results of each single study. So I'm hoping next week to be able to start, distributing it initially with, some of you or those who actually asked me directly, but then, possibly to everybody as soon as I coordinate with Rajen for the distribution of this booklet. I was saying that, yeah, what we discovered in the process of doing these clinical studies, we found that clamine has this very important activity on especially neuronal stem cells. Neuronal stem cells are one of the possibly 3 most fundamental stem cells in the body, and probably the most important of the stem cells, because as you know, the brain is the king of our body. Is brain nervous system regulate and govern every other mechanisms and every other metabolism in the body. And the fact that clamine actually reactivates, stimulates, makes to migrate the neuronal stem cells, the stem cells of the nervous system, it's an amazing, fantastic discovery, which together with the activity of PA really makes, gives us the impulse, for instance, to study things like the cure of Alzheimer, of all neurodegenerative diseases. We just coming out now with a new study on ADHD, ADHD children, hyperactive children. So really a very, very wide spectrum of activities and the general anti-aging and activity of this product. The other extract, and I'll try to be brief, and then I'm open to questions and from your side. It's the Afamax. It concentrates the phycocyanins from this AFA from this algae, and these phycocyanins have at the somatic level again a very, very wide spectrum of activities. They're very powerful anti-inflammatory and so anti-pain. They are very, we discovered that they are the most powerful antioxidant molecule. When one of the studies we published showed that it's up to 40 times more powerful than the best known molecules such as quercetin or catechin. So it's really the top antioxidant among molecules. But then again, we discovered another activity that people possibly did not expect, which is the ability to stimulate somatic stem cells, like for instance fibroblasts, which are the precursors of most of the somatic molecules, and particularly they regenerate the skin, the derma, and that leads me to the other great thing that we're launching, hopefully in the next 4 or 5 months, 6 months at most, of which we gave a demonstration in Las Vegas, and that is actually the topical application through this transdermal device. Transdermal device means it's a little machine like a electric razor that you might have seen, and you apply it yourself at home, and you have these amazing results on wrinkles, on the beauty side, on cellulite, on stretch marks, on skin and muscle tonicity, up to then more physiotherapeutic effects like very quick solution of like muscle injuries, muscle lesions, and so forth. I probably would stop here. I've talked quite a lot. If you guys want to ask me more questions, make questions or make comments, I'll be happy to discuss.
Yes, thank you so much for that summary. And the that 10-page booklet that you have just produced, the best place for that to get disseminated from would be through Dr. Rajen and Costa, and put it right directly into the resources in our main internet site, the replicated site that we all have for IGIL. That'd be a great place for that to reside. So when I was looking at the at Google to see a little bit about yourself, obviously I found lots of information, but the most current is that you will be a keynote speaker at the anti-aging conference coming up in London, England. Can you tell us what the topic will be for that discussion?
Well, no, I think you refer to something that already happened, but I did that in the past. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Well, no, I printed the one from 2008. Your Mind, Your Age, and I read all this.
Right.
Yeah.
The
one. Okay. All
right. No. Essentially, what it is the fact that for all the things I said, this product has really very powerful anti-aging activity, because if you start thinking about the fact that you renew your brain and nervous system, you renew your skin, all this clearly makes for a very powerful anti-aging. But there is another element that it's very important here, and that is one of the key factors, if not of aging, of course, is the aging of brain and nervous system, and that also happens through what is the decrease of dopamine. Dopamine actually decreases in your body about 10% every 10 years after age 40.
Yep.
And this enzyme, monoamine oxidase B enzyme, MAO-B enzymes, which actually are the enzymes that destroy these neurotransmitters and also PEA, they actually increase 250% after age 50. So this reduction in neurotransmitter activity, it's actually a very powerful mechanism for aging. With everything that happens to it, I mentioned before, the fact that when these neurotransmitters go down, other bad things happen, like more anxiety-ridden hunger, less libido, less energy, and everything that is usually associated with bad aging.
Right. So just in case some people couldn't hear, well in the transmission of what you just said, let me just take a minute to summarize from the report of that 2008 report, a talk that you gave. You basically said that very important aspects of aging is the progressive slowing down of the intellectual faculties, together with a reduction of the activity and energy levels and a worsening of mood and mental alertness. And you basically found through your work that the modification of the dopamine and the MAO enzymes metabolism, and it is known fact that dopamine on average decreases 13% every 10 years after age 40, while monoamine oxidase B or MAOB enzymes increase approximately 250% after age 50. And that your molecules that you found out, the FAA Klamath algae extract, had a physiologically powerful inhibiting effect against MOAB and supporting the production and metabolism of the neurotransmitter dopamine. These are all very, very good things, and we're all excited to start experiencing them in our bodies when the product becomes available, Doctor.
Yeah. So I hope it's been a little bit frustrating for me to have this delay. I mean, everything was planned for the product to be actually in Las Vegas.
Sure.
And then of course there was the customs block, and
sure.
I suppose that's partly inevitable for the first time you introduce a new product. But as I said, it seems like now it's solved. So I would hope that within a week or so the product should be available.
Well, that sounds really exciting. The product that got a lot of people very, very keen, because we can see it visually, was the thermal application with the iontophoresis.
Electrophoresis device.
Yeah. Have you guys settled on a name for it yet?
You mean the system is called Clamer. The system of the use of the algae extract, the alpha max with other ingredients, but that is actually the key ingredients of the system, together with this transdermal device. The device itself Right now, the current name is Transdermino, kind of Italian version of the name. But if anybody can come up with a better name, we'll be happy to consider it.
Okay, so we'll have a contest for naming the Transdermino.
Yes.
In North America,
exactly.
or Australian name for it.
Right.
But that's great. So listen, I don't have a lot of extra questions for you. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to open it up to the people, because we've got a full 100 people, which is the first time we've done that. It just shows how keen people are to learn from you and what you're doing. So what we'll do is anybody that wants to ask a question, just unmute yourself by going to the extreme left bottom of your screen, and then unmute your microphone and go ahead and ask a question, please.
John, it's Kathy Manson.
Hi, Kathy. Yeah, we can hear you.
Dr. Stefano, my question is, you talked a little bit at the conference about cancer metastases. And
sorry.
About cancer metastasis.
Oh, okay, right, yes. Okay.
Go ahead, Kathy.
So I just wondered if you could tell us, you were running out of time. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about your results with that.
So she's asking if...
Yeah.
All right.
No, I understand. Yeah, I got the question.
Right.
Well, again, I have another little booklet which I may make available on actually the general anti-cancer effect of the product. Well, let's say that the effect on metastasis was again a side discovery of another research we were doing. We were doing a research on the inhibition of an enzyme which is called UDP glucose dehydrogenase. Unfortunately, this is all these difficult names, but this enzyme, it's actually, the reason we did that is because I actually deposited a patent on the ability of this Affamax extract and phycocyanin to increase the absorption of curcumin. I don't know if you guys are familiar with curcumin, but it's probably the most renowned and the most studied compound. And what we found when we tested it in human beings, we found that there was an increase in the absorption of curcumin of up to 4,000%, about 40 times more, by mixing the curcumin with the Affamax extract. Okay. So out of this came a patent that I have on this ability to increase the curcumin absorption. The reason for that is because curcumin is broken down in the body by this enzyme, by this UDP glucose dehydrogenase. And so what we did, we started testing the ability of the phycocyanins from AFA to inhibit this enzyme. And we discovered there was a very high activity of inhibition. And this same enzyme, just to show how molecules in our body always have very different, are very flexible and have very different functions. This enzyme is also involved in metastasis. Is one of the main enzymes that actually activate metastatic processes in our body. So at that point, we also decided to test, well, if it inhibits this enzyme, let's see if there is an anti-metastatic activity, a direct anti-metastatic activity. And that's what we tested. And we found actually such a huge effect on metastasis that I think we got the absolutely best results of all the known molecules, meaning that the ability to block the metastasis. This is an in vitro study in a laboratory, but the inhibition was pretty much about 100%, very fast, while other products, other substances, at most could only reduce maybe up to 50% the growth of these metastases. Having said that, I mentioned to someone who asked me that based on this, the Afamax extract is at the core of a protocol that we have used in Italy for years. And one thing that you'll find, not only would be a direct ability to prevent these very negative processes, but for instance, usually I find that there is a very strong activity on inhibiting the side effects of chemotherapy. Now, this is another effect, but it's in the same field. There is also a study that was done not by us, but by an Indian group, where they actually tested the ability of this extract of phycocyanins to inhibit the side effect of cisplatinum. Cisplatinum chemotherapy is actually one of the most widespread form of chemotherapy, and it destroys the kidneys and renal activity. And when cisplatinum was used on mice together with Afamax, actually there was zero side effect on the kidneys. The kidneys were in perfect health. So that's another very important thing. And this confirms what I've seen myself for 20 years. I've seen many cases of people doing chemotherapy, unfortunately, but if they associate it with the use of the algal extract, they usually have really very, very low side effects, if not at all, from the chemotherapy.
That is fantastic. And I just, one quick follow-up, I don't want to take all the time, but if somebody already has metastatic cancer, I have 3 women I know personally, can it reverse, or is it too late if they already have it?
That is well, let's say that the Climax product itself was not geared toward that, because as you see, the concentration of the Afamax is smaller in the product relative to the old product. But the phycocyanin as such should be able to. This hasn't been tested, but this is my hypothesis, because there's other molecule, like for instance high concentration protease, which we use together with Afamax in one of the other products I developed, and they actually seems to be able to also extract and destroy existing metastases. I would say probably there would be an effect like this too. The only thing I would say is that if you use a product like Climax in such advanced situation, you can start seeing an effect when you start using high dosages. In other words, one dose a day may not be enough. This was done as a preventative, as a well-being, as an energy, mood betterment. If you want to start getting more therapeutic, then you probably have to experiment with maybe 2, 3, 4 times the dose, the recommended dose. But then at that point, yes, I would say that you can probably see interesting results.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Any other questions? Oh, Dr. Nelson asked me to ask you a question. In Las Vegas, we talked very briefly about 2 other companies that had licensing rights to harvest the product or the microalgae at Lake Klamath. And you had some things to say about those 2 companies. And could you just remark on the difference between your product and the products produced by STEM Tech and Cerule?
Yeah. Actually, it's interesting because I just got results. Well, we are one of the 3 companies that harvest on the lake, and we're. But talking about the product, we just got the results of testing these products like STEM Enhance, Ultra, and the other products from StemTech. And I can tell you that the quality and concentration of the molecules I'm talking about, PA and phycocyanin, is so low that it's probably lower than the whole algae, although they call it an extract. Meaning Stem Enhance Ultra has only like 3 milligrams of PA per dose, as opposed to 15, 18 in our product. Okay. 15, 18 milligrams in our product per dose. And that's actually, this is something that we tested in an independent lab outside, and we have the results. Again, okay. I'll talk with Rajan about this, and if they will decide that it will be made available, you can probably see this. And the same thing happens with phycocyanins for both products, from both Cerul and StemTech. So the product really is really no competition in terms of efficacy. There's no competition whatsoever. And as I said, is actually less powerful than the algae, although they call it an extract.
Thank you very much for clearing that up. For those of you that don't know, there has been a company that's been marketing a stem cell release enhancer, similar product called StemTech, in using the extracts based in California, but recently went into Chapter 11 protection because they ran into financial difficulties. And then another startup occurred in the spring of this year called Cerul. So those are the two companies that have been in this space. And according to Dr. Stefano's current information, is that our product is much more concentrated, much more efficacious for the various testing that they did. So that's very good news to hear. Anybody else out there with any questions, feel free to open up here.
Yes, hi, John. It's Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi. First of all, Dr. Stefano, just want to thank you for being here with us. It was a pleasure to meet you in Las Vegas. I have a couple of questions just pertaining to the topical side. Spa owner actually said to me that she would have to look into liability coverage to see if she'd be able to offer something like that spa. So I'm wondering about regulations about that, and if there's going to be training on the device, is my first question. And the other would be on the topical products used without the device, is still an effect and just a minimal effect, or is the device necessary for this purpose? I understand the deeper issues with calcifications, obviously that the wand would be advantageous, but I'm just wondering about plain topical application and how much effect that would have. Thank you.
Right. So regarding the first question, yes, the product again, one of the reasons why it's going to be delayed still is because, of course, the product needs to be registered with the FDA. But the product itself is a device, not the product. Sorry, the device itself needs to be registered with the FDA, which we're working on. But that shouldn't be a problem because it's a device that is actually authorized in Europe and other countries for home use, meaning you can use it yourself in a self application. That is because the level of electricity or radio frequency are very low, below the levels of safety. The only thing is you won't be able to use the device, or you shouldn't use the device when we start attached to, plugged in to the system. You will have to use it as a battery-led device. Okay, that's only a precaution that they use. Let's say it's used for all these type of devices. Yes, so it will be authorized for personal use. Can it be used in spas and so forth? Absolutely. That's pretty much. We also have here in Italy a more professional type of device, but frankly, apart from the, let's say, the gimmicks and the the efficacy is pretty much the same. So I would say that certainly can be used. There will be training, absolutely, as soon as we'll have solved the hurdles of registration and so forth. So hopefully sometime, I would say next March or April, that we will have some kind of a meeting or meetings to train people to use it. It's not going to be very difficult to use it. It's a pretty simple device, and we're actually now working on making it even simpler. But you know, it's clearly important to be trained and to know what to do with it. Now, the second question on the application, on the direct application. Yes, once you have the gels, the two gels, alpha tone and alpha cells, you can certainly use it also as a topic. We do have a cosmetic line based on the same principle that you can use directly on the skin. Again, as you properly pointed out, it depends on what you want to do with it. Clearly, if you want to use, say, let's say alpha cell for calcifications, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to do it just applying it directly on the skin. So you need the device. The deeper you go with the root of the problem, the more you'll need the device. But on many issues, you know, even just applying the product, the algae-based product, the Alpha Max-based product on the skin, it's also very, very effective. I don't know if that answers your question. But
Yes, thank you very much.
The one aspect of her first question was, would spa owners required any additional insurance coverage to cover themselves in case of any complications?
Well, again, that depends country by country, so I don't know what is the situation in the US, and we'll have to find out. But I would say probably not, in the sense that, again, it's a home-approved device,
Okay.
so the level of, let's say, risk and therefore coverage is very low. And if they have a general coverage for their practice, I don't think they should have any further need for extra insurance coverage.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else with a question for the doctor? Dr. Nelson, have you got anything?
No, John, I think I'm fine.
You look too comfortable.
I know, I'm kicking back and writing notes.
Okay, good.
Going back in my notes that Dr. Stefano gave us in Vegas and kind of reviewing those. But I think I had the biggest question was the competition.
Okay.
It looks like we have none.
Okay.
And so that's great. Thank you, Dr. Stefano.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm also hoping that, you know, again, of course, all these things take time, but we'll be working on setting up a site, an iGallen site for myself, where I can post all the information, the huge information that I have, and you know, I'll be also happy to give you and make available these tests that we did on the level of quality of these other products that, again, really are no competition at all.
Okay.
Let me say something about possibly dosage. Now, you'll receive the product, and you will, the product will come as a bottle with the powder now, and later on, I hope pretty soon, you will also have a version in sachet. So right now, the product in a bottle, the powder in a bottle, the bottle has a measuring spoon inside, and each spoon represents one dosage, which is about 4 grams. 4 grams of which 1 gram is the active components, clamine and Alpha Max, and the rest is you know, good fruit extracts and cocoa and so forth to make it nice tasting, which so far I've seen everybody who's used it has loved the taste, so I will expect that you will like it too. So what you have, you can use the whole spoon in a glass of water. It dissolves very easily and drink it. But I would say that it's probably better if you do it when you take like half the spoon normally on a normal dose of 1 spoon a day, that you take half the dose in the morning and half the dose in the afternoon, just for regular use. Because the reason for that is also you have like a relatively quick effect through sublingual assimilation, and it's better if you distribute it throughout the day. In fact, another possibility is that you use a whole spoon in a bottle of water, you know, in half a liter or something like that, and you drink it throughout the day. That's another good way in which to take the product and make it more effective throughout the day. Again, as I said, if you're then gonna move more on to more therapeutic areas, clearly you'll have to do probably the same thing, but with a more intense level of dosage.
If I may ask you a question, if with the number of aging parents that many of us have, some of whom already have dementia or early onset Alzheimer's, would it make sense at all to introduce this product as part of their daily regime or not?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, see, it's very interesting because we just concluded a study on senile dementia.
Yeah.
We have a beautiful young doctor who's actually the director of 2 centers for aging for old people, and we started the study. We've been working more than a year now. These 2 places are in Rome, and they did a study on 50 advanced decay people who were Alzheimer or very, very low functioning, and we're getting the results very soon. The study has just been completed, but I can tell you one thing that really struck everybody when we were doing the organization of the study. We did a couple of presentations in these 2 centers in Rome, not to the clearly the recovered people, the patients themselves, but to the children of the patients. Except the children of the patient might have been themselves 60, 65, 70 or whatever, because the parents were possibly 90 or 85 or 90 and so forth. During the presentation, something very, very interesting happened. There was a lady. We didn't know if it was a patient. Probably was a patient in the facility, and she, throughout the presentation, which was like a 10-15 minutes presentation that I did, she was like almost comatose. She was sitting in her seat, completely lost, and not giving any sign of. The actually did organize a little taste product, and everybody drank a little bit, of the product dissolved in the glass, and you could see the immediate transformation of this person. This person was like come back from the dead. She revived immediately, took her phone, started calling her son, started being very active, and everybody was like, wow, just for one drink of the product, something like this happens. So yes, absolutely, it's something that will produce actually very, very interesting results. Also because, there is one thing, one element that is important, and that is, the more the person is, let's say, as a bigger problem, the less functioning the person is at the intellectual level, the most remarkable and quick will be the effect that you see in these people.
So
Dr. Stefano, this is Dr. Nelson. Just a question for you. You mentioned the neuroprotective ability, which is phenomenal, and the fatty acid content of the product. But could you touch on EPO, and could you explain what EPO does and how this product affects the increase of EPO?
Yes. Yeah, this is actually a very fascinating area of activity which we would like to explore more. Now, EPO, which stands for erythropoietin, is actually a molecule that everybody is familiar with at the somatic level, at the level of the body, and many of you may have heard about it in relation to cycling athletes or other type of athletes, because it used to be a doping substance, right, that people would take to increase the production of red blood cells and make you stronger and more oxygenated, right, in the body. Now, about 10 years ago, they found that, you know, nobody knew what was happening with EPO and the brain, because EPO in the body, it's a big molecule and does not cross the blood-brain barrier. So everybody thought that EPO had no effect whatsoever at the level of the brain. Then they found actually that there is a specific type of EPO in the brain that is produced in the brain and has specific receptors in the brain. And EPO in the brain was quickly known to do at least one thing that was very important, and that is to be the molecule that is most activated whenever there is a brain lesion, and ischemia cerebrale, I don't know, ischemia,
right?
You say, I think in English, right? Any type there is an ischemia, the body reacts by producing, if it can, if it's able to, EPO, because EPO in the brain actually, it's the precursor of all the stem cells in the brain, which in turn are the precursor of all the neurotransmitters, and so and also neurons, and so by doing that, they send these molecules into the lesion to repair it. Okay. Right. Now the problem is that, again, with aging, this ability to repair is lessened, and so you get an ischemia, and you may not be able to repair it. Now, when we tested the effect of clamine, the main component of the Climax product, on mice, well, first of all, we found this amazing increase in learning ability, which again would suggest that this product has to be used by everyone, and especially children and people in school. The learning ability of the mice was increased so much that, again, subnormal mice, you know, they were tested through this so-called Morris test, which is a water labyrinth, and they have to learn to get out of the water labyrinth and into safety. And there are standard results like, you know, the subnormal mice that are artificially made prematurely senescent, so their mental ability is slower. They usually, this type of mice usually takes about 20 seconds to get out of the labyrinth, whereas the normal mice, the younger mice, take about 10 seconds. When they took clamine, the subnormal mice moved from 20 seconds to 10 seconds, actually I think to 9, which made them absolutely normal. And the most amazing thing is that the normal mice moved from 9-10 seconds to 4, which made them absolutely, you know, exceptional mice. And but the most remarkable thing, apart from this great effect on learning ability and intellectual ability, is that at the end of the study they sacrificed the mice. They analyzed their brain, and they found something that they haven't found so far with any other substance. So that this in itself should be like absolutely huge. It should make, you know, the first page news all over the world, and that is a huge increase of EPO in the brain, which means, again, as I said, this huge ability to restore all the function of the brain and the nervous system, and the ability, most of all, to repair constantly, if you take it daily, all the lesions that happen daily in your brain. Because your brain, the lesions in the brain, the micro lesions in the brain, are not caused only, you know, whenever you bump your head into something, but also when you eat something that is wrong, something that is, you know, toxic. And so your brain is actually every day subjected to some type of insult that over time can accumulate to produce, you know, brain degeneration. And the fact that every day you take a product that actually stimulates and keep up the function of EPO in your brain, and therefore the ability to repair all those lesions, again, that in itself is another very, very important anti-aging or better aging effect of this product.
It's amazing.
Sounds good. I have several questions that are being posed in the chat line. Let me see if I can bring up the most current. It's presumably safe for children. Can you speak about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's actually safe from children before they're born.
Oh, yeah.
You can give it to pregnant women, and you will make their pregnancy much better, much easier, and the child will be born much stronger and much healthier. That I can tell you also from personal experience, because that's what happened with my children.
Nice.
My first son, who's now 19 and studies at UCL in London, it was amazing when he was born, because he actually came out. I was present, so I can testify that personally. He came out with eyes open and his head up, looking around the world, while he still wasn't out completely into the world. So yes, it's absolutely perfect for children, even small children. And this soluble version, it's very good because, you know, you can really give it to, you know, even babies in a way, because you can dissolve it in milk. For instance, I have one story that is actually very interesting. There was a child, I think it was like a year old, that was introduced to a milk, an artificial. The mother could not breastfeed anymore, so they gave him an artificial, natural but artificial milk. I don't know, or maybe it was like goat milk or something like that. I don't remember. But they added, you know, some of the product, some of the algae product in the milk, and the effect was so remarkable that actually the child itself, after a while, he would not go back to normal milk. If given regular milk without the algae in it, he would not drink it. Okay, so yes, it's absolutely great for children from age 0. And again, we tested it, and the study is coming out, I think in December, in the Journal of Medicinal Food.
Fantastic.
And it was given to children from age 5, I think, to 15. So again, you know, no children with ADHD, and it had a very good effect on these children. And there's absolutely no problem in using it, as I said, even with very small children.
Are there any categories of people that should not take this? The question that comes out, what about people with pacemakers? Would it have any effect whatsoever on that situation?
No, there's no side effect of any type. There's no warning of any type that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And actually, even people with pacemaker may actually, again, be very, very, very well affected by the product. Yes, absolutely.
The question is, have you done any testing on people with multiple sclerosis, MS?
Yeah, well, let's say that's another very, very interesting thing. We haven't done any scientific testing on it. I've seen 2-3 cases of significant improvement. In fact, I have a letter, I may have mentioned that in Vegas, I have a letter from one of these men who actually wrote to me saying, for the first time after so many years, I'm actually able to go out and go to the beach and have a sunny day in the beach without something I couldn't do before. Having said that, yes, I would be happy to. I would love to make a study on MS, because one of the things on EPO is that actually, since it regenerates nervous tissue through the cascade of neurotransmitters, stem cells, and then neurotransmitters, it's been hypothesized and studied as a specific drug for multiple sclerosis. In fact, they created an artificial version of EPO, which is called recombinant EPO, and they tested it on MS people. The problem, or initially, was very little efficacy, the artificial version of it, and with very important side effects. And at least one author that I'm aware of wrote in his article that it would be important to find something that actually stimulates your own EPO rather than inserting it as an artificial drug from the outside. And here we have it. So again, if there is anything that can help with MS, I would say that this is probably the only thing so far that can really help with multiple sclerosis, even though, again, as I said, we haven't done any clinical studies on it yet.
Okay.
Dr. Stefano, you mentioned that in Vegas, approximately 12 million kids are on Ritalin and with the ADD, ADHD condition. And you comment a little bit on the effectiveness of this for children's attention.
Right. Yeah, this is actually, it's always been a source of pain for me, and that is the reason why I actually wrote a book on ADHD, which again is actually translated in English but not published. So maybe, hopefully soon, I'll be able to publish it also in English. It's currently published in Italian. I say I've studied ADHD quite intensely for the writing of this book, and yes, there's it's a disaster. Not only in the US, although the US actually leads the way, unfortunately, but also in many other countries of the world. Millions of children take daily Ritalin. Ritalin is an amphetamine, so it's a very heavy drug. I know that there are, possibly more than 500 cases recorded of children who die of heart attack at 14, 15 years old after having taken Ritalin for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, because these are the side effects of such a heavy drug. Now, what is interesting in the ADHD studies we've done is that phenylethylamine, PEA, this wonderful molecule that we produce ourselves, again, when we're happy and when we're in love, is actually the natural physiological mother of all amphetamines. All the amphetamines are modifications in the laboratory of PEA. But the difference becomes huge, because the artificial modification of PEA, amphetamines, actually becomes a very powerful hyperstimulant and will stimulate your body to death if necessary, okay? Because that's all it can do. It can keep stimulating even if you don't need that. PA, the natural version of it, the physiological version, is not a stimulant, it's a neuromodulator, which means it stimulates if you need, but it actually lowers and moderates if you're overexcited. And it actually does the two things together, because personally I'm always amazed when I take the product myself in finding that I am at the same time more energetic and more calm, which is exactly what doesn't happen, for instance, you take stimulants like coffee. You may be more energetic, but you can get jittery or agitated. Here you get energetic, focused, but calm, okay, and less stressed. So it's a very good. I'm very happy of having done this study in Italy. And look, it's been done not in an alternative center, in some weird from the mainstream facility. It's been done in a neuropsychiatric hospital specifically devoted to ADHD. Italy has an advantageous situation on this because of a big campaign that was done when they wanted to reintroduce Ritalin. There was a big media campaign from an organization that was called Hands Off Children, Giù le mani dai bambini, and they actually managed to make the distribution of the product very, very difficult, and not even child psychiatrists can today prescribe Ritalin or Adderall or whatever in Italy, but only centers that are devoted to this specific center. There are maybe 20, 30 in Italy that can do that. So we went to one of these centers and we presented two studies that were done in Japan that showed what? Showed that, they divide, that they talk about a paradoxical effect of Ritalin, right? Meaning, how can Ritalin, which is an amphetamine, sometimes moderate, an hyperactive children? Well, there's two things happening there. One is what is called the zombie effect, meaning they have a zombie effect on the child. So he's calmed just because he becomes like a zombie. But the other effect that divides responders from non-responders to Ritalin, these Japanese researchers showed that actually the difference is in the fact that in the responders to Ritalin stimulates the production of phenylethylamine, PA, in the brain, whereas in the non-responders, that phenomenon doesn't happen. So when we presented this study to this child neuropsychiatry group, they saw a rationale for saying, well, yes, then let's see if giving directly PA with a product that actually brings it to the brain through the anti-MAO-B activity, because just to explain, these enzymes, MAO-B, MAO-B enzymes, destroy also phenylethylamine as soon as you take it. If you take it by itself in your body, if you take even a huge quantity of PA in your body orally, it never reaches the brain because it's destroyed by these enzymes. We found in the algae 3 molecules that are the most powerful natural inhibitors of MAO-B enzymes, and so that actually allows for the PA to reach the brain and do all the wonderful things that I said. When we presented this rationale, they accepted to do the study. The study went on for 1 year, and the results are clinically very, very significant and better than, in terms of efficacy, better than Ritalin itself, of course, without any of the horrible side effects of this drug.
That's wonderful. I would even suppose that this Clemex is going to be very effective for results with autism.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I've had very good results with autism. I've been working with autistic parents for at least 10 years now, and they swear by it, and they don't touch the product because it really changed their life with their children. But it was amazing to find that this child neuropsychiatrist, Dr. Cremonte, who's one of the authors of the study we're publishing, he told us and asked, I mean, he offered himself this observation. And we're talking about a product that a person who's actually, believes in Ritalin. We're not talking about somebody who's, and he told us that about 25% of the children who participated in the study had an autistic component, because ADHD, they say, has a very high level of comorbidity, meaning it usually overlaps or coexists with some other disease. And about 25% of the children participating in the study were also one way or another, different degrees autistic. And this saw very good result on autism. Now, that wasn't part of the study, so we did not report the effect on these children, but he actually asked us for doing a specific autistic study, which we're now preparing because of what he saw in the study. But again, that for me was not a surprise, confirmed something that I've seen in the last 10 years just working with autistic parents in my area and in Italy.
Thank you so much. I have several more questions if you still have time.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So somebody was asking about if it's safe and recommended for pets. If you've got a neurotic dog that's hyperactive, would this help at all? And have you tested?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And actually on animals in general, cats and dogs, the effect is usually very rapid and, on all levels.
Okay.
Sure, neuroses, but also energy. The quality of the fur itself will improve, the quality of the sleep and so forth. So yes, absolutely.
Good.
Can be used with pets, yes.
Okay, now this is a more difficult question. Can it help repair a spinal cord that was damaged but not severed, causing the person to become paralyzed?
Again,
very difficult.
I've seen so many miracles with the product that I wouldn't say no. Clearly, nobody can guarantee anything in a situation like that. I mean, it's a very difficult situation, but over time, certainly there will be an improvement.
Okay.
One other thing that I didn't mention before is that PA has also, once it becomes effective and absorbed and available, like with the Climax product, PA actually has a very, often very fast and very deep anti-pain effect. I've seen many cases of people taking the product and after 15, 20 minutes, sometimes even faster, they say, oh, but I don't have that pain anymore, pain in the spine or pain in the ankle or pain in the hip or whatever. So again, it's actually something that I discovered by experience, meaning it happens to me, a few times to see an unexpected sudden results like that. And then I researched it and I actually found that this is a recognized effect of PA, meaning that in the scientific literature, it is known that PA has an analgesic so-called effect on the system, anti-pain effect on the system.
One would presume that it's because it has a positive effect on dopamine, which also controls part of that pain mechanism.
Yeah, that's part of it. But what is interesting is that it's also because they keep finding specific receptors for trace amines all over the body. And so there seems to be also a direct effect on the nerve transmission mechanism, not only through dopamine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next one is, could it help cerebral palsy? Very difficult question.
Again, the same thing. I would say that will certainly help. It would need to be used probably in higher quantity. Yeah. But, again, I don't know when the destruction is done, it's going to take a long time to repair a deep and old damage. But I would certainly say that, you would see some benefit, some improvement in the person.
So another difficult question comes, and this is about PANS or PANDAS, which is pediatric acute onset neuropsychiatric syndrome. It's the first time I'm hearing about it. Do you know anything about that?
No, but I mean, again, it's you know, I have a different approach to disease in general. I don't think, you know, we have so many diseases. These are all names.
Yeah.
And usually, you know, the disease is one, and it's a kind of a
inflammation
type of neurodegeneration that, you know, can be called many different names, but it has to do with the fact that transmission is interrupted. There's some kind of lesion in the brain. There's a slowing down of again, neurotransmission functioning. So yes, I would say that as it helps with something like autism, it can certainly help with any other named developmental disorder in children and everybody, really.
So a question that's closer to home for all of us. What do you think will be the synergistic effects of taking Climax together with Emulin?
Yeah, I would say that it certainly will enhance the anti-inflammatory. I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't know very much about antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. Certainly there's a synergy there because, again, as I said, the alpha-max and the phycocyanins are among the best, most powerful molecules in terms of anti-inflammatory activity. So the synergy of the two will certainly increase that effect. I would probably say that one thing that I find is that generally anything that is associated with climathalgy or climathalgy extracts, the synergy, it usually improves very significantly the efficacy of the other product because it's better absorbed, it's better metabolized. We find this, as I said, I deposited a patent on curcumin that is poorly absorbed, and so you would have to take like 12 grams a day to have an effect by itself. When mixed with the alpha-max extract, actually you can go down to half a gram and have the same effect because it increases absorption like 40 times. I would say that something like that can happen with pretty much every other substance. So even taking the two products together would make even Emulin probably more better metabolized and better absorbed. And one thing that you know, be interesting, I would like to do some research in the future, which again can be synergy with Emulin. It's the activity on metabolic syndrome. Because right. One thing that I don't know if I said in Las Vegas, probably not, is that one of the studies that was done about 15 years ago on animals, and there's a study that was published in the review in the journal Gastroenterology, showed that the algae, climathalgy, has a very significant effect on the inhibition of enzymes that are devoted to the absorption of sugar in the body. There's an intestinal inhibition of amylase, sucrase, and maltase that actually means that your body will lower this level of absorption of sugar. So again, together with the effects that I was told, like you, that Emulin has on that in that area, certainly that can be a further synergy that can be very significant.
Very interesting. I have probably the most difficult question here for you, and this comes from a Dr. Fabricius. I think Fabricius. Yeah. Now I don't know the good doctor, but he wrote a very lengthy thing here. Let me read it out to you. AFA is a cyanobacteria, not an algae. Can you tell us specifically how microcystin toxin, an endotoxin produced by AFA, is 100% removed for the formulation of Climax? This is a bioaccumulative toxin, meaning it builds up in the body, that has been scientifically shown to induce motor neuron disease. These toxins have been found in other AFA products and are a real health concern. There are health professionals that are recommending that people, especially those with neurological and liver conditions, should avoid use of all AFA-based products because of the risks of bioaccumulated microcystic toxin-induced degeneration in susceptible individuals. Wow. Did you get all that?
Yeah, I heard all that, and it's full of imprecisions, full of mistakes. This is a very big discussion. I'm actually publishing an article. I'm submitting a publication, an article on this topic, probably next week, because there's so much bullshit, sorry to say that, on the topic. Let me just clarify a few of the mistakes that were made in that statement.
Okay.
First of all, it says that AFA produces microcysteines. False. It's not true. Actually, AFA has been shown by a specific study that was published in 2002 to be a strain that is constitutionally unable to produce any toxin, microcysteines or otherwise. Okay, first. AFA can be contaminated by another algae which is called Microcystis aeruginosa, which is the producer of these microcysteines, like any other substance that lives in water, meaning it's, spirulina is contaminated by it, chlorella is contaminated by it, fish is contaminated by it, water is contaminated by microcysteines. And microcysteines, for instance, it was saying that it can cause neuromotor disease. Again, sorry, bullshit. This has nothing to do with microcysteines. It has to do with another toxin, something that, and I'm not accusing the doctor himself to be to do defamation, but I'm accusing, for instance, other people like the late president of STEMTech, who now wants to move away from AFA and is trying to defame the algae. He might get into trouble if he continues, because again, he attributes to AFA something like this neuromotor disease, which is related to BMMA, another toxin which has been proven to be completely absent always from Klamath algae. Let me go back to microcysteines. Microcysteines, it's a very non-problematic toxin. It's everywhere. And in fact, just think this. I'm actually releasing a one-page statement that I'm sending today to Dr. Rajan on this topic. Just think this. Klamath algae, it's bound by law in Oregon to contain no more than 1 microgram per gram of microcysteines. At the same time, people don't know that in the US, the water that you drink by the Environmental Protection Agency has a limit of 3 micrograms per liter of microcysteines, meaning 3 micrograms per liter, and therefore 6 micrograms per day in your diet are considered safe by the Environmental Protection. Come to me and say that 1 microgram in Klamath algae, it's a problem. I mean, this is a joke, right? Not to mention that the substance of my article that I'm publishing is that, see, unfortunately, we have to understand that the real problem here are toxicologists. Toxicologists have a very vested interest in creating a lot of alarm and making toxins much more dangerous than they actually are. And that's exactly what happened with microcysteines. Studies were pretty much falsified to make it look much more dangerous than it is. Especially this is ridiculous relative to the microcystins content in microalgae, because let me try to explain this concept very clearly. Microcystins, this molecule, which by the way, there are researchers who think that at the level of micrograms are actually not only non-toxic but beneficial for the liver. Microcystins are oxidating toxins. The way they supposedly do damage to the liver, it's by oxidating liver enzymes. Okay, there's at least 20 studies from the 90s showing that any antioxidant substance, from quercetin to carotenes to silymarin to whatever, any antioxidant substance deactivate the molecule, the toxin. So, as opposed to water, where there are no antioxidant substances together with the toxin, the algae, the cyanobacteria, as the doctor correctly points out, be it FA, spirulina, or chlorella, is not a cyanobacteria, it's actually an algae, contains so many antioxidants that actually the microcystin has no chance of doing any harm. In fact, based on this, the ex-director of toxicology of the FDA, when discussing the level that was supposed to be established for microcystins in microalgae, he said that 10 micrograms per gram would be absolutely adequate and safe. And here we're talking about 1 microgram per gram. So all this is, sorry, big bullshit. And in fact, in 20 years of use of Clamax, spirulina, chlorella, and whatever, there's never been any toxicological report of any type.
Thank
but
you.
Anyway, I have a dossier on this which I'll make available, which explain all these things in detail, and I'm publishing an article on this hopefully in the next few months.
Well, thank you so much. I'm sorry to have raised your ire, but
no, sorry, but
yeah.
No, especially, I mean, I'm available to this. I'm available to discuss all this when it's based on, I wouldn't say correct information, but good faith information, But when I hear things like AFA produces microcystins and is associated with neuromotor disease and BMMA, this is actually can only be said by people in bad faith. I'm not talking about the doctor who asked the question, because he probably heard it from someone else, and not being an expert in the field, he just took this at a face value. But the people who disseminate this information are actually people who do it in bad faith.
Well, both you and the doctor are on Facebook, and I would urge the doctor to reach out to you and get some clarity on this topic between the two of you. Let me just look to see if there's anything else, and then we're almost an hour and a half, and that's long enough for you this early in the morning. You've been very, very generous with your time, so let me just see if there's anything pressing. If not, I will just wind up here. Just give me one more second. I don't see any other very serious questions.
Yes, I also would be happy to exchange information with the doctor to ask the question. I will send him my documentation
Sure.
as soon as he contacts me.
Okay, so Dr. Fabricius, you know what to do if you want to continue this discussion. Well, listen, folks, this has been an extraordinary call from where we thought we weren't able to get the good doctor on the video. We had him on for the full hour and a half, and anybody that wasn't at Las Vegas got more tonight than we did in Las Vegas, so you can't say that you were deprived in any way. This will be recorded and will be posted on all the usual Facebook pages within about an hour, so look for it around 9 o'clock this evening. Dr. Stefano, I'll send you a copy as well, so you'll have a copy of what you did and what was asked, etc. And again, thank you so much for taking time out of your sleep night and being so generous with all of us. And we look forward to the arrival of your amazing product in the next week or two. And we will be sending you all kinds of testimonials once we experience them. Again,
Great.
thank you all. And I'm going to stop the recording, but people feel free to keep talking if you have any comments. So the recording is